Hi, I'm Director Norman Buckley, and you're listening to Chuck versus the Podcast.
Hi, my name is Graham Jones, but you can call me Gray. This is my show. It's about Chuck. It's filled with interviews, the latest news, crazy co-hosts, and spoilers that'll make your day. Oh, wait, I need to go back. I host these TV nights. They used to be pretty boring, but everything changed when I found NBC's new show, Chuck. Pretty soon, my TV night got pretty crowded. Guys I didn't even know were showing up the door. Big, important guys. Really scary, nasty, get killed for hosting them guys. Next thing I know, these super episodes are downloaded into my brain, which means every moment of my life, I'm thinking about Chuck. ChuckTV.net sent their top people to protect me. That's Mel and Liz. They're pretty zany. They co-host with me now as a cover. So now I must welcome you to Chuck versus the Podcast, the first and only podcast for NBC's Chuck.
This is Mel.
And this is Liz. Welcome to Chuck versus the Podcast, episode 18, for Monday, March 23rd, 2009.
This week, it's the Liz and Mel show again while Gray wraps up his current TV job. We have a lot to get to in this podcast, though, so let's go right on into it.
Yeah. First, we've launched the Watch, Buy, Share campaign at chucktv.net. If you head on over there, you'll see how you could do your part to make sure that Chuck comes back for another season.
And instead of focusing on, sending in letters or petitions or something right now, we thought it would be more effective if we put some numbers where the networks like to see them. So we are encouraging people to watch, and we've got several different ways you can watch it. Will make an impact even if you're not a Nielsen family. We're encouraging you to buy the DVDs and the episodes online and then share them with your friends. Get other people to watch. So that's the gist of it. But there's a nice big button on chucktv.net that says watch it, buy it, share it. And you can click there and get the details and some handy dandy links as well.
Yeah. And I don't know if this counts. I'm pretty sure it does. But even when the reruns are on, watch them.
Yeah, it does count.
So, I did Monday night.
Well, it was such a good one. It was Chuck versus the Seduction.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best ones of the season. This whole season's been good, but that was one of the best.
Yeah.
As we mentioned last time, Josh Schwartz's new web series debuted March 17th on the WB.com. The series was directed by Norman Buckley, who is also an editor and mostly director now on Chuck. And it follows a group of 20-somethings who frequent a rock club for various reasons. And the first 4 episodes are available now, so we encourage you to check it out on the WB.com. That's it for the news, but we do have lots and lots of commentary about the last 2 episodes, Chuck versus the Beefcake and Chuck versus the Lethal Weapon, which are called the MI6 arc. And people, it's MI6, not 006. MI6.
006.
I'm going to change that on the forum, so anytime somebody types 006, it'll say MI6. It's driving me nuts.
Oh.
But Cole was MI6, not 006. Anyway, so yeah, lots happened in those 2. The first one generated a ton of discussion because obviously Sarah was attracted to Cole, and the shippers were not happy about that. I don't think any of us were terribly happy about that. It was interesting to see her react the way that she did to this manly man, this suave spy, and then to see him try to win her over and her kind of resist. But there was that kiss. He kissed her. Chuck saw it, and he sort of decided, okay, it's over then. At that point, but that was in Beefcake, and then in Lethal Weapon, something has changed, and Sarah has, I don't know, had time to think. I'm not sure, but I think early in the episode, she had decided that no, she's not. Cole's not what she wants, and so she kind of made a point. On the show, they were trying to make it seem like she was leaning more towards Cole than Chuck, but she was making a point to say, no, it's both of you. And, I care about you too, Chuck. And, I'm concerned that you're both hurt. And he injured his ankle, and Cole got shot, and she cared about both of them. So equally.
I'm sorry, but that was funny.
That was hilarious. His slow speed chase of Picardo's character from the hospital to the tech building was, oh my gosh, that was cracking me up.
It was so funny. It was so Chuck-like.
It was.
I love that.
And when Picardo's character turns around and Chuck drops and starts tying his cast.
his cast. Right.
That's our boy. Quick thinking Chuck. So.
Oh, he's classic. Classic Chuck.
It was classic Chuck.
Classic Chuck moments.
We love you, Chuck.
Yeah, we do. But I got to say, Cole, I could see the attraction.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going to disagree with me, especially the shippers. They're going to be, no, what's the matter with you? I'm going to catch a lot of heat for that. But I'm sorry. He was
attractive.
Doggone attractive. And especially shirtless.
But he's a freebie 5 kind of person. He's not a lifetime person.
No, he's not. And you could tell.
That's the thing. It's a fling versus a serious relationship.
Exactly. Chuck has a lot more depth, grounding than Cole. And I think Sarah knew that. She knows that.
Yeah.
I couldn't put my finger on why, she wouldn't completely fall for him, but she's an agent and so is he. Mm-hmm. So she's aware of what his lifestyle would be like, and it just wouldn't work. Being with Chuck isn't too easy either, but
it has the potential to be so much more. Whereas, someone like Cole or Bryce, it's just, it's going to be what it's going to be. It's not really going to be anything more than kind of a superficial physical attraction and some banter. Even though, as we saw in Lethal Weapon, Cole was getting he was pretty affected by her.
He was.
I think he genuinely cared and, she wouldn't have been a one night stand for him. She would have been, maybe 6 months even, probably the longest relationship he's ever had. But even so, Chuck's looking at forever. Mm-hmm. And Sarah, I think, is finally coming around to saying, you know what? That's what I want. That is what I want.
Yeah. The simple life.
And it's okay. Mm-hmm. I think that's the crux of it. We were talking about last time we did this discussion, you were talking about her walls coming down and her having to be Sarah instead of Agent Walker.
Yeah.
And I think she's still grappling with that and figuring out that it's okay for her to have what she wants, to have something real with Chuck, that's not a bad thing.
I thought it was interesting that Cole seemed to me to be, he was just another Bryce. Mm-hmm. And that was it. So I think that's what finally, made it click to me. She would never go for Cole any more than she followed Bryce on his next mission. Mm-hmm. She just wasn't going to do it.
Yeah. She's made up her mind. She still has to remind herself sometimes or recognize maybe when, Bryce came in an unfamiliar package. It was the same offer, different person. And I think it maybe took her a little while to figure out that that's what was on offer, but
yeah.
And she did. And she said, you know what? No, there is nothing going on between us, even though he tried. But to Cole's credit, and much to many fans' dismay, he turned out to be a nice guy.
Yes.
We did not want to like him, but by golly, by the time he left at the end of Lethal Weapon, he was a good guy, and he saw that it was Chuck and Sarah, and he encouraged Chuck to go for it. He did get in one more try with Sarah, but he did tell Chuck, don't take no for an answer if it's something you really, really want. So.
Right. So other things that happened.
Major things that happened, since we're still talking about Chuck and Sarah. Let's finish that out a little bit. That scene at the fountain, where Sarah's there waiting on him. And of course they had to move in together. We should mention that.
Right.
Yeah, they had to move in together, and poor Chuck woke up. I don't think he slept all night, quite frankly.
I don't think he did.
Sarah, I think, had a really good night's sleep, and Chuck was just petrified that he was going to mess something up there. But anyway, so Sarah's waiting for him at the fountain, and he comes back, and he finally decided to man up, and he sat down, and he said, I'm crazy about you. Flat out told her, I'm crazy about you. I did not see that coming. I thought that we would have another kind of oblique conversation where, we both know what we're talking about, but we're not actually going to say anything. But no, flat out, I'm crazy about you. I'm going to get this intersect out of my head, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life with the woman I love. And I think it took Sarah a few beats to realize that the woman I love equals Sarah. But when she did, she had that, oh my gosh, almost heartbreakingly beautiful smile, tiny little smile, but that look on her face.
Yeah.
Yvonne Strahovski my God, she just knocks it out of the park every time, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's pretty potent in this role, and exceptionally good at the facial expressions. More than anything else, I mean, she's fabulous all the way around, but facial expressions, sometimes a look says many things.
Mm-hmm.
And you can almost hear the collective sigh of relief when Chuck finally came out and said it. People have been waiting for that. Why doesn't he just tell her? Why doesn't he just tell her? It was kind of a relief that he did, but at the same time, I kind of couldn't help. He interrupted her. She started to say something, and I couldn't help but wonder what it was she would have said.
I know, and they keep doing that.
Yeah,
they keep not letting her say. But the times that she has gone ahead and said what she wanted to say, it's always been a deflection or some sort of a way to turn off that conversation before it gets too real.
Yeah.
So I think in this case he did, and we were also seeing Chuck take control for a change, and he needed her to not interrupt him, and he needed her to say, this is how it's going to be. This is what I am going to do. So that I think for Sarah, she needs to be secure that he loves her. That's not going to change. And he has a plan. He has a way for them to be together. It may be a dream, but he's going to make it a reality.
Yeah.
And, I think in order for her to feel comfortable voicing her feelings for him, she needed that from him. And so now he's laid it out and he said, this is how I feel about you. This is my next step. This is why I cannot live with you. And that's that.
Right.
And she's admitted to pretty much everyone except him how she feels, but always again obliquely. But I think now that she has that reassurance and that security in how he feels about her, and that he's not helpless in his feelings about her, his feelings for her, he's going to be active in making it so that they can be together. I think maybe she will feel more confident about telling him.
Yeah, and I didn't get the sense that he was saying it and then saying, okay, Sarah, the ball's in your court now. He was just saying it because this is how it is.
Right. It needs to be said.
And
therefore.
Right. And he's going to move forward now. So we'll see. We hope he is. We think he is.
I'm pretty sure.
Our speculation is.
I hope, but I do think that we need to see something similar from Sarah.
Yeah.
In the next couple of episodes. And I think that we will.
Yeah.
Have some kind of actual reciprocation from her. So, but for what it was, for the time that the timing, that was exactly what needed to happen. So kudos to them for doing that. And, and one thing I like about Zachary Levi is that he can play the goofy side of Chuck. And, he was put through his bumbling spy paces in these 2 episodes. But once Chuck gets it, he can snap, Zach can switch to, I don't quite know how to describe it, but he can go from that kind of bumbling, goofy nerd to
being sure of himself and knowing exactly what he's doing.
And I love it when we see that he is a really smart guy, which leads us to the final big reveal in that episode, where that Tron poster that Ellie and Sarah want to get rid of is a much bigger deal than anyone else realizes.
Yeah.
I gasped and then I cheered. Because our Chuck has been tracking information this whole time. He's been trying to figure it out on his own this whole time, and nobody knew.
Right.
He's been putting that brain to work and getting no credit for it.
Yeah. It looked like a big mess to me, but just the idea that the fact that he was doing that, I mean, he's obviously working something out. It just looked like a jumble to me.
Yeah, but he hasn't been passive.
Right. Right.
That's what I love about it. He has not been passive. I think so many times it appears that Chuck is just a passive participant, if that's not an oxymoron, in Team Bartowski, where he's the name because he's got the intersect, but it was something that was forced on him. And when the flashes come, they're forced on him. So he doesn't really have any control over it. But now we're seeing that no, in fact, he has been working on something on his own. He has had this project. He's not just some loser nerd along for the ride. He is trying to take the driver's seat at least. So
there you go.
That was really cool. That was really, really cool.
It was fabulous. And somebody sent us a ginormous copy. We posted it on chucktv.net of that Tron poster, the back of it, not the front of it.
Yeah. If you want to see the front of the Tron poster, you can just Google Tron, and then you'll see it.
You'll see it.
But I wonder if the Tron poster is what's going to give him away. Is Ellie going to be cleaning and, just get so fed up with it and feel like, especially now that he's not actually moving in with Morgan or Sarah, is she just going to feel like, that's it, I've had it, and start, go in there and try to get rid of some of his childish things or, things from that she feels are evidence that he isn't growing up or moving forward, and then she finds out, she, turns over the poster and finds out? I don't know.
That's kind of tough to call because and I was thinking about this too as I was watching the episode last week, that I just don't know if they will ever. Chuck is supposed to be in the spy world. He's got one foot in the spy world and one foot in the real world there, his own Chuck world. And I don't think that it would be safe to let Awesome or Ellie or Morgan or any of them in on his secret.
But if they did accidentally, if they found out accidentally.
Yeah, they'll have to cover it up. They're clever.
Yeah.
They'll find a way for Chuck to talk his way out of it.
I'd like to see him try. because Sarah and Casey are on there.
Yeah.
And Ellie and Awesome and Morgan all know Sarah and Casey.
That's true.
So how can he explain that? Because their actual ID badges are on there.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. If I knew, I'd be one of the writers on the show.
Touche.
Making lots and lots of money.
That's true.
I'm not as brilliant.
Just have to wait and see.
We just have to wait and see.
I think these next 6 episodes are going to be killer, though.
Yeah.
From what we know, what's been coming out, we'll talk more about that in the spoiler section, but what's been coming out, hold on to your seats, people.
Yeah, pretty good stuff.
Well, let's move on into listener emails and comments. We have a lot of them. These 2 episodes generated a lot of feedback. In the forums, the chucktv.net forum we've been running through our spoiler and speculation threads like crazy. So join us there if you would like more in-depth discussion about these 2 episodes and what's coming up. But let's move on to the listener emails and comments.
All right. First one is from Sabrina from New York, and she says, hello there, it's Sabrina from New York. I wanted to say I'm a big fan of the podcast. I'm a big supporter of the whole Chuck-Sarah relationship. I just wish that they would get together already. They've had enough distractions with Lou, Jill, Bryce, and Cole Barker. I think that they both know that they're in love with each other. I'm sure it wouldn't make missions more difficult because they're already risking lives to save each other. But hey, what do I know? I'm only 12. Look at this.
She's our youngest listener.
She's our youngest listener. I love Chuck and I love this podcast. Bye.
And then after that she sent that one in right after Beefcake aired. And so then she wrote again after Lethal Weapon.
Yeah. And she says, hey, it's Sabrina from New York. I was just wondering, on Chuck's chart, it says Sarah Lisa Walker under Sarah's picture. But how does Chuck know Sarah's middle name? Do you have any ideas? Thanks. Good catch, Sabrina.
That's right, because if you recall in episode 104, she just whispered her middle name, and Chuck was clear across the room. So does he have supersonic hearing? Or what?
Among everything else.
Yeah, among his other superhero powers.
Right.
I don't know.
That was a good question. Very good question. Or was that an oops?
Hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
He might, but we just found out that he's got this collection of information that nobody's known about. So maybe he's got other sources.
Oh, yeah.
Than what we're seeing.
Could be from the new information that he gained from the bad intersect.
Oh, true. It could be from the Dark Intersect, except we never saw him flash on their files.
Well, we didn't, but I don't know. Hopefully they'll explain that.
I hope so.
But good. It was a good catch. And Sabrina, I'm only 12. Don't say I'm only 12, honey. You are a smart 12-year-old.
She is. She is.
So kudos to her. And thanks for writing in.
Yep. Our next email comes from Chris, and he's from Northern Ireland. He says, "Hi, Gray and the girlies, who managed an excellent program last week by themselves. And that compliment means I'm going to give you the girlies. If you could see my face if you'd seen my face when I first read this email, I was all, excuse me. But anyway, he goes on to say, I'm enjoying your podcast from sunny Belfast, Northern Ireland, where I meet once a week with my friends for my very own Chuck night. We have become increasingly enamored with it over time, primarily because we see ourselves in Chuck's character so often. He really is a true nerd hero. You indicated that the status quo may be shaken up as a result of the upcoming season finale, and that really struck me. Given the interest of some fairly big names signing on as guest stars recently, do you think that the regular cast may also expand as a result of this change? Over here, we are all constantly applauding the fact that there isn't a single actor who does not pull his or her weight on that show, and it would be wick to dilute such a fantastically unique mix. Keep up the good work and have a great St. Patty's Day, Chris. P.S. Wick equals our equivalent of your equally colorful It Sucks, pronounced the same as Candlewick. So there are some big names that have signed on for the rest of the season as recurring guest stars. But the regular cast expanding, I'm going to go with no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it may be shrinking just a little bit, but
yeah.
I don't know for certain. So
yeah, I can't see it expanding either. Maybe a change out here and there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we may swap out some characters, but I don't know that it's actually going to expand. And as far as the core, Chuck, Sarah, Casey, I don't really see that. That dynamic is so set and so good. I mean, they're just such a good team that I don't think that that's going to change. And of course, Ellie and Awesome and Morgan they're the six main characters on the show. I don't really think that that's going to change, but I don't know.
I don't know. I don't see it happening.
No.
But happy St. Patty's Day to you too, Chris.
Yes. Cheers to you. Thank you for writing in, and that was Chris from Belfast, Northern Ireland. And we'll just give a shout out to his nerd hero friends as they get together for their own Chuck night.
Yeah. That's pretty fun. It has to be a good time there. Send us some pictures of you guys.
We'd love to have some pictures of you guys.
Send us some pictures. That'd be so cool. Our next email comes from Mo, and he says, "Hey, Mel Liz. Mel Liz. Okay? Instead of girlies, just Mel Liz. That'll do. Just wanted to say that the Lethal Weapon episode was awesome, especially the map at the end showing Chuck was up to something all this time. It was just super cool. Go here to find the map on NBC, and then he shares a link with us, but we've already got it. I love all the little notes he put here and there, especially the one for the general. Also, I loved your all-girls podcast again and can't wait for the next writer interview. Much love, Mo." Thanks, Mo.
Thanks, Mo. And Mo, if I remember correctly, is from one of the Scandinavian countries. I cannot remember exactly which one. I apologize for that. He was a frequent poster on the forums until he decided that he was posting too frequently and removed himself for a while. So it's great to hear from you, Mo. And I just wanted to mention that I've tried to email you back and it keeps bouncing. So I don't know if you need to check your email reply to the reply to email on your emails or what. But I have been trying to get back in touch with you, and I did pass on some information that you sent for the forum members. So it's great to have you still interacting with us through the podcast at the very least. But we miss you on the forum.
Yeah.
So what was the note for the general?
I'm looking at it right now.
On Chuck's chart. You can find that at nbc.com/Chuck, and you'll be able to see the little, I don't know, they have the rotating feature thing, and it's on there. So the note for the general, I have to find the general. There she is. USAF, DOD, classified, Roan's girlfriend.
Roan's girlfriend?
What?
Roan's girlfriend. Huh?
Okay, number one, that's a terrible photo.
Yeah.
But Roan's girlfriend. That's right, because remember at the end of Seduction, when he says he'll be right there, many were speculating that it was him being called to come hang out with Beckman.
Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully we'll get some clarification on this.
Yeah.
By the end of the season.
Good catch, Mo. We hadn't seen that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
All right.
Interesting. Well, our next email is a follow-up from Eric from Norway. And he says, hello, all of you. Thank you for answering my last email. I was up on top of my roof today shoving a load of snow when I heard Mel and Liz mentioning me on the podcast. I was so excited that I almost fell off the edge. I was really thrilled and felt I had to write immediately. Thanks a lot for the 1.5 minutes of fame. You are all pretty, and I'm looking forward to your next podcast. Eric from Norway. P.S. I remember you talking about Bimoria being PC or Mac, so I was wondering, what are you guys? I personally am a Mac man. Well, first of all, Eric, please be careful while you are on the roof shoveling loads of snow and listening to our podcast. And I hope that you're not doing something equally precarious as you are listening to this episode.
Right. Right.
But he's going to be like tightrope walking without a net, and
so
there he goes.
we probably should have put a kind of a warning before we read this. Eric, get off the roof now.
Yes. Bless your heart.
Yeah. But that made us laugh a lot when we
It did. So, and in answer to your question, I'm a PC person. I have a desktop that runs Windows XP and a laptop that runs Windows Vista, and that's primarily just because all of the applications I use and peripherals are easier to use with Windows. I don't really care either way, but it's just more convenient.
Yeah, same here. I had always heard that Mac was for more artistic people, and I don't have an artistic bone in my body. So I figured I wasn't qualified to have a Mac.
There's a prerequisite.
Right. So, yeah. But, dude, I have a Dell. Dude, I have a Dell. Windows Vista, which I'm sometimes happy with and sometimes not.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of getting used to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gray also replied to that inquiry because he couldn't resist. And he says, I've been a diehard Mac user since about 1989. I even wrote a successful shareware app. My home has the following: Mac Pro 4X 2.66, MacBook Core 2 Duo 2.0 gigahertz, dual G4/1.25, upgraded sawtooth single G4 with 1.0 gigahertz Sonnet upgrade, quad Intel 3.0 gigahertz EFI-X USB-based Mac clone, just built it. We're also diehard ITV users. My shareware app was a utility for ITV. We have 4 models, which I use to tape tons of TV in SD and HD. Since I work in TV editing and writing, I need to archive a lot of content for research purposes. Yeah, a likely story. Gray. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Uh-huh. If that's how you can
justify that.
Right. You know.
So I think there was just, I think several of our listeners probably just had a nerdgasm. From that, but it doesn't really mean much to me. I know that those are all computers or peripherals. So, yeah.
That's why I say I'm glad that you had to read that, because I would have just been stumbling over this one more than usual.
So, well, there you go, Eric. There's your answer.
Now you can go back up on your roof.
It's safe.
Okay. Elena writes to us. She says, hey, Chuck Podcast Gang. My name's Elena. I'm from Rochester, New York. I've loved your podcast for a while. Your in-depth discussions always reveal more things about the episodes of Chuck and enrich my viewings of the show. I had a question about the introduction of the new Sarah love interest, Cole Barker. As much as it makes me sad that Chuck and Sarah aren't together anymore, I really enjoyed Barker and Chuck versus the Beefcake. He's a pseudo James Bond womanizer guy, And maybe it was his mesmerizingly sexy British accent, but he fits seamlessly into the show, unlike other guest stars, Jill. And I really enjoyed the torture scene with Sarah, him, and Chuck. Were you guys as enthusiastic as I was? In parentheses, she puts, plus Zachary Levi's comedic timing through the episode, priceless. His line about the pre-torture made me laugh so hard I missed the rest of the scene. Thanks so much, Elena. Well, I agree. Thank goodness for, stop action, that little button you could just put to pause, because otherwise I'd miss a whole lot of Chuck. I agree, though. So she liked him like I did, and pretty much for the same reasons.
The accent, yeah.
Well, I'm not an accent person as much as I'm a chest person. Go ahead, take your shirt off. Guys, take your shirt off, and I'm happy. I don't care what accent, no accent. I don't care. Don't talk at all.
See, I'm an accent person, so I was more intrigued by him because he had the mesmerizingly sexy British accent than for his looks. But
this is so girly.
It is. Or sorry, guys.
Sorry, Gray.
Yeah. But he did. She's right. He did fit pretty seamlessly into the show. He was in. We've said before that a lot of times the guest stars just fit. They're not really stunt casting. They're just there. But he was more organic, I think, than many.
Yes.
Even as well as this show does guest stars, he was even fit even better, I think.
Yes.
As much as the Chuck and Sarah fans didn't want him to, by the end of that 2-episode arc, I think everybody could pretty well see that, yeah, he was a good character, and I wouldn't mind if he came back.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind at all. No, really, I wouldn't.
Really?
Really,
especially
seriously.
If he lost his luggage and somehow lost his shirt too.
Yeah.
So the whole time.
Yeah.
Sure was.
That's it.
Again, with apologies to Gray for that. So yeah, he was a good character. We liked him. Moving on, we have Andy from England. He says, "Hello from England. Love the podcast, but thought that you would want to know when Chuck is being shown in England for all the fans. It will be in May on Virgin 1. Cannot wait. Until then, I will be listening, just skipping the episode reviews. Love the pod. Keep going, Andy. P.S. Who are the boys Mel always says hi to at the end of the pod?" Well, congratulations to the fans in England. You're going to be getting season 2 soon, sometime in May. We don't have an exact date, but at some point in May, it will be airing on Virgin 1. So keep your ears tuned for more on that. And in the meantime, you can skip the episode reviews if you wish when listening to the podcast. If you're trying to stay as unspoiled as possible, I'm not sure how you're going to do that, but I don't know what else Andy could be listening to if he's not listening to chats about the episodes. But listen, he does. God bless him. And in answer to your other question, the boys, Vern and the boys that I give a shout out to at the end are some of our servicemen who are overseas in Afghanistan, and they download the podcast and they watch Chuck online whenever they can. And we've been in some communication with them. So it's just a way to say, hey, still thinking about you guys. Still appreciate what you're doing over there, and, keeping them in our thoughts.
Yeah. So that was kind of a twofold email. A shout out to Vern again, Vern and the guys, and Andy's thoughts.
Yes.
Information. Our friend Sydney is back from Toronto. Sydney says, "Hey again, I've got some serious opinions of Chuck versus the Beefcake. You and 9 million others, Sydney." I listened to the most recent podcast the day of the new Chuck. Although I wasn't expecting the episode of Chuck to be girly, I was still disappointed, mostly because Sarah was being stupid and ignoring Chuck. I will admit that I judge each episode based on the Chuck and Sarah moments, but some of the funniest Chucks are ones where there were no cute moments. I have always had a very big respect for Sarah, but this last episode has had me quite angry with her. I remember you saying that you felt as though Casey and Sarah had switched personalities for Chuck versus the Gravitron, and I think it's the case with this episode as well. Sarah completely blew off Chuck for the hottie, and several times Casey and Chuck had a sort of heart-to-heart. What do you think? What do we think?
Well, of course, she wrote this after watching Chuck versus the Beefcake, and we haven't heard from her yet on her thoughts about Lethal Weapon. Because I think while a lot of people did feel like Sarah was acting out of character in Beefcake, I think her motivations became clearer with Lethal Weapon. And it was somewhat redeeming. And yeah, Casey does seem to be stepping it up a little bit with him and Chuck. I think he's still moving towards that kind of mentor, teacher position for Chuck, which I wonder if they're not setting something up for later, maybe next season. That
would be fun.
Yeah, I think that could be really cool. But yeah, but I want to say that, yes, it does seem like they kind of switched personalities a little bit. Casey and Sarah did, but I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it just shows us that these are not two-dimensional characters, that there's a lot going on. Not every, just because someone has a way that they act most of the time doesn't mean that that's how they will act all of the time. And so I think it's kind of cool when we get to see those other layers of those other elements of the characters' personalities on Chuck. So that's my answer.
Hang in there, Sydney.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be good.
Yeah. And as we were prepping for today's podcast, we had an email from our friend Jorge from Chile. So we wanted to include that as well. He says, "Hi again, guys. I hope you're doing great. I am. Just writing to say hi and congratulations for the podcast. It's really getting better by every episode. The interview with Norman Buckley was great because we got to know about the whole plot with Kayla that didn't make the cut. That part was good for trivia. Also, the show is getting better every week, and it's quite obvious that a big finale is coming. Can't wait to catch it. I have a question for you guys. I'm from Chile and all that, but I was wondering, how could I help with the numbers, meaning ratings, of Chuck? I've passed the show to several people, but they're all Chileans. Doesn't that count for something? I mean, could it ever mean something? I think it should count because many people watch the show overseas. I also did the same thing with Eli Stone, but as you can see, it didn't work. I was thinking that a good way to get their attention is to buy the DVDs, but there should be a more immediate boost to a show that I'm watching and that I don't want it to be canned. Don't you think? Thanks for everything. You really make some of my days with your great podcast. Hope to catch you again soon. And remember, you're all pretty. Bye, Jorge." Well, thanks for writing in again, Jorge. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. And in answer to your question, we actually have quite a few international Chuck fans who are wondering what they can do. I think buying the DVDs helps a lot, but especially if you can watch the episodes at NBC.com or at Hulu.com, that makes a big difference as well. I know that some countries it's blocked, the access is blocked. I'm not sure if you guys can get in it or not, get in to watch those or not, but that makes a difference. But other than that, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't get NBC and you can't watch NBC, if you can't watch Chuck on NBC, then it's not going to make as big of an impact, I suppose. Unfortunately. So right now it's basically the Americans duking it out for a third season.
Yeah.
But we sure appreciate your support, and it's nice to know that you guys are eager as we are for a third season.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can access NBC, please do.
Yes. So that wraps up our very long listener emails and comments section for this time. We love to hear from you, so be sure to email us with your questions and comments. Please be sure to mention the city and country where you're emailing from. And you can send in photos if you'd like for those to appear in the enhanced podcast. Just make sure that you have permission from anyone who's in the photo for us to reproduce that on the web. So you can send in your comments to mail@chuckpodcast.com. And like I said, we love to hear from you, and we'll answer those questions and comments on future podcasts. You can also leave an audio comment or question on my voicemail. It's 310-594-3755, and we will play those on the podcast and answer your questions and comments as well.
And that concludes this part of the podcast for Chuck versus the podcast. And we're going to move on into our spoilers section right now. So if you'd like to pause or stop or go get a hamburger, now's the time to do it. Now's the time to do it. And we just want to thank you all for listening and for writing and for voting for us on Podcast Alley, and we will talk to you next time.
That's right. Remember to leave comments for us on Podcast Alley and iTunes or at Chuck Podcast, www.chuckpodcast.com, and mail us with your questions. We'll see you next time.
Okay, we're in our spoilers section right now of Chuck versus the podcast, and we're going to be talking about stuff that hasn't happened yet and is likely to happen based on spoiler information that we have posted at chucktv.net. And our first, we're going to read listener emails. Mo sent in something that we'd like to read to you, and this is a speculation that he's got for us, and we'll see what's going to happen here and talk a little bit about it. Mo says, I have a theory you could share on your podcast maybe. I don't remember if you put those in your spoiler section of the podcast. I say this because it has spoilers for future episodes and is based on the spoilers that may or not be true for this season finale episode. And here it goes. If you look at the map that Chuck has, it reminded me of the SD6 map that was actually the Alliance map in Alias, where Sydney learns how much more complicated her work will be in the future. I'm wondering if Fulcrum could not be a smaller cell in a bigger operation. That's where the Elders come in. They each have one cell to run, and Fulcrum is one of those. I know the Fulcrum guy in Lethal Weapon thinks he is doing this for the good of old US of A, but maybe they are being lied to. Maybe the Elders want global domination, and Fulcrum is the USA cell. That would be a game changer if you ask me. But I'm afraid Chuck can't become this big unless Chuck himself changes jobs and becomes a banker.
As in Sydney's job in Alias, yeah.
Okay. Or have an excuse to travel the world. All this is more wishful thinking than anything else. Just like I was thinking about another thing they should do, being a recurring villain in season 3. I suggest Summer Glau, since Terminator seems to be getting the big axe. Wait!
Bite your tongue.
No, it's not. Not yet. Let her be the daughter of one of the Elders, and she could be one tough opponent for Sarah. I would love to see them fight. Anyway, too much? And again, I don't know if you girls put those spoilers emails in the podcast. We do.
Yeah.
Much love, Mo.
So the gist of his theory is that Fulcrum is just one cell in a larger operation, which, you know, one of the suspension of disbelief elements about Chuck is that Los Angeles is the spy capital of the world. So if, you know, because everything seems to be happening there and the threats are always in LA.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's some plausibility to that idea that it's more than just an LA-based operation.
Could be. Yeah. Never having seen Alias, I have no idea what that reference means whatsoever.
Well, yes, you are going to be pretty lost, aren't you?
I was kind of.
It's basically what happened in Alias is that she saw a map. She saw a map that revealed to her that SD6 was in fact number 6 in a string of similar organizations that were global and were all working for world domination, basically. And she was already basically a double agent. She thought she was working for the United States, and then she found out that no, she was not, and so she became a double agent. And she was trying to bring down SD6, and then she discovered that her job was a lot bigger than she thought it was.
Oh.
Yeah, so what Mo is speculating is that Chuck's trying to bring down Fulcrum, but as it turns out, the operation is quite a bit bigger than he thinks it is. So, as far as with the Elders, I'm still trying to be very, very careful and not, you know, it's one thing if Asiello or Kristen, if, you know, Entertainment Weekly or E! Online or somebody like that reveals spoilers, because they usually do so with the blessing of the showrunners and the network.
Right.
It's another thing when I do it and when ChuckTV.net does it. So we have to be very, very careful about what we say. So I will just say that I don't know that this is the way that they're going, but with the introduction of the elders, the scope does become quite a bit bigger than what it has been so far. I think that's safe.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to leave it right there.
Okay.
And we'll move into, speaking of Osialo from EW.com, he has some spoilers for the rest of the season that he posted a few days ago. Here's what he has in bullet point format. Multiple weddings, a shocking death, Morgan departs the Bymore, Chuck and his father are reunited, Chuck and Sarah are going further than they ever have before, Chevy Chase, the return of Jeffster, the return of Bryce, the return of the Awesomes, and a game-changing twist that will hopefully launch the show into season 3.
Well, I could do without the return of Jeffster.
Well, I can confirm what they're doing. They're playing at the wedding.
Oh. Okay. That was pretty painful.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. We already knew Chevy Chase was returning, and he's going to be in 3 or 4 episodes. And now that he spilled the beans about Bryce, I will confirm that Bryce is, in fact, the familiar partner to whom Sarah is reassigned in the finale. That was in our original spoiler for the final episode of the season. So, yes, he does return. And, of course, we can assume the Awesomes are back for Ellie and Devin's wedding. So that'll be fun. We'll get to see Bruce Boxleitner and Morgan Fairchild again. I wonder if we'll see his brothers.
Ooh.
We did already know that Chuck and his father will be reunited. And as far as Chuck and Sarah going further than they ever have before, that is it. There's a lot of speculation going on the ChuckTV.net forum about whether that is a play on words, whether further instead of farther makes a difference. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. So the shocking death, I don't know. Morgan departs the Bymore.
Shocking death. Who could that be?
Gee.
My bet's on the general.
You think?
Yeah, that's where I'm laying my money.
Okay. I haven't come down on anything yet on who I think it is, but that is valid speculation, I think. I know what multiple weddings means, but I'm not ready to reveal that yet.
And Morgan leaving the Bymore.
I bet Anna has something to do with that. I wonder if he will stay gone from the Bymore.
Yeah. Because does that mean Anna's leaving too? And what's going to happen to Jeff and Lester without Morgan?
I know. Maybe their band really takes off and they sign a deal and they leave the Bymore too.
Oh, ouch.
It's just Big Mike and Emmett. Yep.
Well, anyway, that's Osialo's take on everything. And as we know, they are writing a Bible according to Osialo as we speak. A compilation of all his bits and bobs and
analyzing them to try to figure out if words like further versus farther actually mean anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but we will move on to show synopses. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Well, for episode 2.18, Chuck versus the Broken Heart, we'll start with that one. Chuck and Sarah's relationship puts Sarah's job in jeopardy. Aha. Tricia Helfer from Battlestar Galactica guest stars. I have been waiting for this episode.
Me too.
When Chuck expresses his feelings about his complicated relationship with Sarah, a heartless female agent named Alex Forrest, guest starring Tricia, is sent to evaluate Sarah's performance as Chuck's handler. Morgan, Jeff, and Lester tried to weasel their way into getting invited to Awesome's bachelor party. That should be pretty funny.
That should. And we do know that Tricia Helfer had something to do with the bachelor party as well.
Yes.
So, now that having you read that out loud, when Chuck expresses his feelings about his complicated relationship with Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of speculation about who he's talking to and how that then leads to the second clause there. A heartless female agent is sent to evaluate Sarah's performance. There's been a lot of speculation that somehow Chuck spills the beans to the general about his relationship with Sarah. But if you read that out loud, it reads as, when Chuck expresses his feelings about his complicated relationship with Sarah, as in he's talking to Sarah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what
Mm-hmm.
results in Alex Force being sent. So I wonder if we've been reading it wrong this whole time.
Mm.
Those sneaky people.
I don't know.
What if he and Sarah are talking down in the castle and they don't realize that the comm channel's open and General Beckman can hear them?
Oh, that would be interesting. Yes, that could happen.
That could happen. I guess
You
we'll
know,
find
you could
out.
see Chuck hitting a button or
Mhm.
something.
Or sitting down. He sits
yeah.
down on a control panel
Yes.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
Me too. All right, so that is the episode that airs tonight, actually, Monday, March 23rd. And that sets off a 6-episode run of new episodes. So next week we will get episode 2.19, Chuck versus the Dream Job. The official synopsis for that episode reads, things are looking up for Chuck when he finds his father and lands his dream job, or so he thinks. And this episode guest stars Chevy Chase and Scott Bakula. Chuck's life seems to be coming together. His long-absent father, Steve, guest star Scott Bakula, has returned, and he's landed his dream job with his hero, Ted Rourke, guest star Chevy Chase. Unfortunately for Chuck, neither turns out to be quite what he expected. And this episode airs on Monday, April 6th.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally get to see Papa Bartowski.
That should be interesting. That'll be cool. I'm going to be excited to see that one, too.
Me too.
So after that, it should be the week following, right? Unless we get interrupted by someone or something. Spoilers for episode 2.20, Chuck versus the First Kill, would read, Chuck turns to a surprising person from his past in order to find his father. Tony Hale from Arrested Development, Scott Bakula, and Jordana Brewster guest star. She's coming back. After Chuck's father, Steve, is kidnapped by Fulcrum, Chuck learns the only chance he has to find him is by putting his trust and life into the hands of the person he trusts the least, his ex-girlfriend, Jill Roberts. Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, the Buy More team tries to sabotage Emmett's corporate evaluation. Emmett, played by Tony Hale.
So Jill is back. And
Jill is back.
They have to trust her. And they're not going to want to do that.
Yeah, I can't say as I blame them.
Nope. We don't see anything in the synopsis about Sarah being jealous of Jill. So I guess that's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder how much of Sarah we're actually going to see in those couple of episodes. Doesn't sound like much, huh?
Well, I think what's happening is that the Chuck and Sarah relationship, once we get through Broken Heart, I think maybe we've come to a point where it's no longer the focus.
Right.
You know, because there's a lot of intersect stuff that needs to be dealt with for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on it.
And that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, the relationships only make up part of the show.
Exactly.
So, as much as you hate to admit it.
I think that Chuck and Sarah will be in a good, secure place by the end of Broken Heart so that we can then focus on the return of Chuck's dad, Ted Rourke, the intersect, getting the intersect out of Chuck's head. You know, I think his motivations will be the same. He wants to get the intersect removed so that he and Sarah can be together. But I think that the relationship won't be the main focus. I think the action and the overall mythology arc will become the focus. So, which is good. I'm ready for that.
I am too. Yeah. I'm really ready for it. That, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
No.
I'm interested in Chuck and Sarah's relationship and all that, but I'm really looking forward to what goes on outside of that bubble.
Yes, me too. And I think that we've got a lot of really good stuff coming up. So
yeah,
I can't wait.
I can't either.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it for us for this episode of Chuck versus the Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And again, you can vote for us at podcastalley.com and leave comments for us there and at iTunes, wherever you happen to be downloading these episodes. And don't forget to check out the Watch It, Buy It, Share It campaign at chucktv.net and send in your questions and comments to mail@chuckpodcast.com. And we will see you next time.
See you next.